Alright, what is good, ladies and gentlemen? It is the Master Reviewer back again with another review, and today we are doing a review for The Devil Wears Prada. This is a movie that I happened to come across on Disney Plus, and so I decided to watch it. My only background for this movie is that before I watched it, I think a few years ago, I watched The Devil's Advocate, and so I thought this movie would be a bit similar to where I thought there might have been like some supernatural elements with like, I don't know, the boss would end up being like a devil figure, like similar to The Devil's Advocate. So anyway, yeah, so with that said, let's just get started with the characters. So I thought that actually I'll start off with the plot. The plot was great. I thought it was a very good plot. The plot is basically that there is the main character who is Andy. She gets a new job as the assistant of a very high figure fashion designer, and she's like not very enthusiastic about the job, and she's like kind of just doing it so she could advance her career with experience, and so like she gets a job that like a lot of women want, a lot of people want this job, and she ends up getting it because the fashion designer woman, she ends up her name is Miranda. Miranda ends up taking a chance on Andy, and she gives her the job. And so the plot of the movie is basically that it's like it shows how Andy changes herself in order to fit the world of fashion, and ultimately where that leads her. And by the end of the movie, she realizes that this is not the right path for her. It's like she's sacrificing to like she ends up becoming like a workaholic. She ends up neglecting her boyfriend, her friends, her family, and she realizes that this is not good for her. And even though she is seeing a lot of success, ultimately it is coming at a price. And by the end of the movie, she walks away from it all, and it's a very nice happy ending. She gets back together with her boyfriend. She ends up getting a job somewhere else. Yeah, we'll get more into it, but. So the plot, I'm going to give the plot an 8 out of 10. I thought it was great. I thought it was a very good plot, very enjoyable, very good to follow along to. So I'll give it an 8 out of 10. In terms of the characters, you have Miranda Priestley, played by Meryl Streep, who I thought that she was great. The only other thing that I really remember Meryl Streep being in was I remember she was in Mamma Mia, and in that movie she plays like the exact opposite role, basically, where in that movie she's like a very sweet, nice, kind-hearted, like mother to the main character. In this movie, she's like basically this she's basically like the devil of the fashion industry, basically. Also, I'm noticing now her last name is Priestley, so I guess that is kind of like a priest, but she's like acting like the devil, so I guess I'm just noticing that now, that there's a correlation there. Other than that, you have Anne Hathaway, who plays Andrea Sachs, and I thought she was a very good main character. She was this girl that she entered the industry. She's like not very big on the fashion industry, but then over time she's like, you know what, I'm not gonna get like she's like committed to this, and she wants to prove herself to her boss, and so she ends up changing herself, becoming like she's like willing to like go the way for like this job, and but ultimately she does realize that this is like not really for her. Like this is she's sacrificing too much for this. Like her boyfriend ends up then she ends up breaking up with her boyfriend because she ends up missing his birthday and stuff, and like she ends up having to in the middle of plans with like her friends or her family, she has to like leave in the middle and stuff. So she realizes that this is not going well for her, even if she is seeing a lot of success. So I thought that her character development was very good, and she had a great arc that I liked a lot. Other than that, you have Stanley Tucci, who plays Nigel, which I really liked his character. The only thing I will say about his character is that by the end, he does end up like getting a partnership, and I'm gonna get more into this later, but I don't really, his character was good. However, there are thoughts that I have related to the end with his character, which I'll get to a bit later. Other than that, you had Nate, which was Andy's boyfriend, and I thought he was good. I liked him. He very well played like this boyfriend who he wants to be very supportive of Andy, and like he's not getting upset at her, even though like he doesn't really approve of like the work ethic that she has, like where she's like neglecting not only herself, like she stops eating like what she should be, like she's dressing differently. He clearly sees like a drastic change in her, but he still wants to be supportive. But then ultimately it gets to a point where like he can no longer support her because she is becoming too engrossed in the work that she's doing, and she's becoming like a completely different person than what he used to know. So other than that, you have Emily, who is initially the first assistant of Miranda, but then she's kind of throughout the movie she as Andy she becomes better at her job. It's shown that you have Emily, who is not as good as the job ultimately, and she ends up making more mistakes that Miranda notices. She ends up getting sick, and then she ends up losing out on her the thing that she was most looking forward to, which was the trip to Paris for some fashion event or something. And so it's good, her character, it's like a good contrast. It's very good, like her character in relation with Andy, who both of them are like she does help out Andy. Like she's like a very it's interesting. It's like she has like a very not toxic, but like she's mean to Andy a lot of the time, but ultimately she does still want to help her out, and she does kind of care for her, I guess. Like she is telling her like what to do, what not to do. Like her criticism is like coming out of like trying to help her like become better at her job. And so ultimately at the end, when Andy ends up giving her the clothing that she got from Paris, that was nice. That was sweet. Other than that, you don't really you have Christian Thompson, who is he's basically just the guy that Andy ends up meeting at an event, and she ends up using him for like to get some work done that she needs the manuscript of an unreleased Harry Potter book for Miranda's her children, and he ends up getting it to her, and through that they have they develop a relationship that starts out professional, but then Christian, he ends up trying to take it more than that, so he ends up in Paris, he ends up seducing her, and they end up while Andy is separated from Nate. So yeah, then so his character is basically to like tempt Andy into getting more engrossed in the life of fashion and like the people that are in it and stuff. So other than that, there's not really anyone else really to mention. There's I guess Andy's friends that show up for like a few scenes, which I guess they're good. They're like to help show the contrast between the two lives. However, they are very into fashion, so it is like at first they kind of like encourage her. So, which yeah, so they're fine. I guess other than that, you have no one else really that comes to mind. So in terms of the characters, I'm gonna give the characters I'm gonna give them also an 8 out of 10. I thought they were great. I really liked all the characters, specifically Miranda as this boss, this woman that is like she is completely just sadistic in her work, where she is a complete workaholic. She makes everyone around her work tirelessly. She doesn't say thank you at all. She like shows barely any sympathy for anyone in the industry, and she is just a very great character. Meryl Streep did a great job, and Anne Hathaway did a great job as Andy. Those two characters in particular just very good, and everyone else really does a great job, I'd say. So great. In terms of the setting, I guess the setting, I'll just consider this like the world of the fashion. All right, I apologize. I got interrupted for a second, but I am back now. I might have to do some editing and cut around if I see I'm recording that doesn't look good, but anyway, I'm back. So in terms of the settings, I would probably say, and I'm gonna rate this based on basically just the world of like the fashion industry. That's basically the setting for this. I'm not gonna base it on like the buildings or whatever, although the buildings were nice, I'd say, but the world of the fashion industry, I really liked it. I thought it was very, very cool to see. It's like it's something prior to this, I have like no experience in fashion except for like, I don't know, I reviewed like the Barbie Netflix TV series, so that's like the closest thing that you get with me in terms of fashion. I'm very much like, you see how I dress in every video. It's like I have a circulation of like maybe less than 8 shirts or something like that. So yeah, I don't really know a lot about fashion. However, it was cool to see the fashion industry and like how people are in it. And so all of that, I would say, I'm gonna give it, I'm thinking between an 8 to an 8.5. However, I'm gonna be harsh about this. I'm gonna give it an 8 only. So I'm gonna get 8 for the setting. In terms of the comedy aspect, so here's the thing. I didn't realize that this was a comedy. It didn't really feel like a comedy. However, there are like some lines that, I'll say this, it has good lines, but I wouldn't say anything is comedic about it. So because of that, like, it's not really funny. Like, it's not like, you're not going into this for the laugh. You're going into it more for like the other genre, which is drama. So in terms of comedy, I'm just gonna say that it was, I'm gonna give it like, there were good lines, but it's like nothing that really, like here's some, like there were some lines where it's like, Nigel's character asked like Andy if like Miranda gave her any details about like what she asked for, and then she's like, yeah, she went into it in like great detail. Then we combed each other's hair, and then we watched American Idol. And it's like, I'm probably not doing it justice. However, when I watched that, it's like, oh, that was a good line. That was a clever line. And then there was some more like when Emily says, at that point, why didn't you just like go into bed with her and ask her for a bedtime story? It's like there's good lines in the movie, that I thought were well said. However, nothing like really made me laugh, and so because of that, I'm gonna have to give the comedy like a 5 out of 10. Like it wasn't like nothing felt like comedy per se, and so that's why I'm not really like normally if it, like for the last review for Onward, I had comedy initially, but then I saw it's not really listed as a comedy, so I decided to remove it. However, if they're listing this as a comedy, then I don't really have a choice other than to rate the comedy. So because of that, I'm just gonna say a 5 out of 10 because it wasn't good, but it wasn't bad because there really wasn't any comedy. So yeah, so other than that, there was drama. However, there is the drama, I would say definitely I'm going to give it an 8.5. I thought it was amazing. I thought that it was very good, very nice to watch. It did feel very tense, and I wanted to see what was going to happen. It felt very dramatic the entire way through. So I will give the drama an 8.5, I would say. In terms of the worst thing, the only worst thing I didn't really like about the movie was towards the end, there was like this plot point where Nigel, he ends up getting like this partnership that he's been waiting for like 16 years, I think he says. So it's like something he's been waiting for his entire career, and then he ends up getting it. But then at some point, I think something happens with it, like he doesn't end up getting it for some reason. And then he's like, it's a good scene, like he's disappointed and stuff. He says like, he says like he'll hope for the best because he has to. It's like demonstrating how like brutal the industry is. So it's a great scene. However, I don't really understand why that happened. Like because I'm pretty sure he himself said that like Miranda was the one that got the job for him. However, afterwards it's like Miranda's the one that reveals this like truth or whatever. So I didn't understand really what was going on with that plot point of him like losing the partnership that he was hoping to get. So not hoping to get, that he did get, but then he ended up losing it. So I don't know what was going on with that plot point. So because of that, I'm going to give that I'll say that thing there, I would say it was 4.5, not good. I didn't really like that where that plot point ended up going. So yeah, in terms of the best thing, I will say the best thing was probably that's a tough one. I think I'm thinking either the plot itself was really good, or maybe the actresses' performances, because I did think that the Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway, at least their characters, they did a good job with their characters. I'm gonna go with the plot. I think the plot itself was probably my favorite thing. So I'm gonna reuse the score of the plot, which was an 8 out of 10. So yeah, and yeah, any extra notes I have? The music was very good. I liked a lot of the music that there was in this film. Nigel's speech to Andy about like why the fashion industry, why like he's like, you should just quit this. It's like there's millions of girls that want this job. This is an industry that like means a lot. It's like a beacon of hope to a lot of people. And then it's like it was a good speech. And he mentions like a kid from like Rhode Island that like snuck away from like soccer practice to end up like practice suing and pursue his like dream of being in the magazine or whatever, like working on the magazine. So he was probably referring to himself there. And so the speech was very good. I like that. Once again, there's a lot of good lines in this scene. So not scene, in the movie. The movie has a lot of very well written lines. Anything else? Andy's character, she does end up wasting a perfectly good meal of steak. Like there were some mashed potatoes on the side and some chives on top. It was a perfectly good meal. And Miranda's character's also at fault. She like said she didn't want it and that she was gonna just eat lunch with someone else. And then Sandra, not Sandra. And her name is Andra Sachs, but her nickname in the movie is Andy. So she wasted a perfectly good steak, which I took great offense to. So anything bad that happened in the movie, I'm completely all for it. Yeah. So other than that, let's see. There was an interesting thing where it's like every time Miranda called Andy, she like picked up the phone, and so at the point where Nate was breaking up with Andy, Miranda did end up calling her, and then it was like a great scene. It was like perfect timing because it gave her like a choice of like, is she gonna pick up the phone or is she gonna ignore it to be with Nate? So I thought that was very well played out. And yeah, and by the end of the film, like Miranda calls to try to see what happened to Andy, where she left, because ultimately she decides that like she doesn't want the life, so she walks away. So Miranda calls her to see where she is, and she throws the phone away and decides to walk away from it. And yeah, also at the final scene of the movie, I think it was the final scene. It might not have been, but it was it showed Miranda in her car, and then it was established earlier in the film that like anytime she's like seeing new runway dresses or whatever. It's like her fashion, when she's like viewing the fashion choices that people bring to her. She does, like, she has a system of like, she nods once if it's like good, she nods twice if it's really good, and if not, she'll like shake her head if it's like bad, and then she'll do something with her lips if it's like terrible. And it stated that like the only time she ever smiled was like one time in like 2001 or something like that for, I don't know, some fashion person that ended up coming. So by the end of the movie, she does smile and she does chuckle a bit, which I thought was like a very, very good ending to show like this character that's basically the devil of the fashion industry. She like has a respect for Andy, so I did like that at the end. And yeah, those are all the extra details. So I am going to do the calculations. So King Crimson. All right, so it ends up coming out to a 7 out of 10, but I would probably give it a lot higher than that. I would probably give it, I would say, an 8 out of 10, I would say. I think one of the things that, so a problem is with this is that when I pick the worst thing, like if I pick the worst thing here, I end up giving it a 4.5. So even though I thought it was not good, like what I said, like the plot point and stuff about Nigel's character, so it wasn't good, but because I end up rating it so low, it like ends up causing the entire score to go down a lot. So I think I might have to, I think what I might do is I might change how I score the worst thing at some point in the future to try to make it more balanced out, because the final score ends up coming out to a 7, but I would give this movie like an 8 out of 10. So I might end up changing that in the future. So yeah, I would give this an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a great film. I really enjoyed it, and it was, I guess, yeah, all the reasons that I have to figure out a better transition into the outros, but yeah, 8 out of 10, so great film. Anyway, if you have any recommendations, any shows, movies, anime, video game stories, anything that you want to recommend for me to review, you can leave it in the comments and I will maybe possibly check it out. But with that said, that is pretty much all there is to it, so let's leave it at that.